What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. One of the big questions heading into Nintendo's next generation system: will those original Switch games still work on the Switch 2? Turns out, yes, they do, but there are some exceptions and issues depending on the title, and it looks like Nintendo has actually issued an update now for certain ones, and we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Sony once again raising prices, not necessarily on hardware this time, but subscription services in a certain region. And then we also have Microsoft doubling down on Switch 2 support, which does make that summer showcase coming up for them quite a bit more interesting. All that and more today, guys. If you enjoy this video, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or the link in the description down below. And we're going to start today with Mario Kart World and that direct that's actually going to be happening in, about an hour or so after this video goes live. We can see this, though, posted up. This is over on Nintendo of America's official account saying, join us April 17th, 6 a.m. Pacific or 9 a.m. Eastern Time to learn more about Mario Kart World for the Nintendo Switch 2 on the Mario Kart World Direct. The live stream will be roughly 15 minutes long, and people are kind of mixed on that, like, oh, that doesn't seem like a lot of time to showcase the game on. A lot of expectations clearly around this, and rightfully so. It's an $80 release, so people, of course, are just looking for, okay, why is it $80 outside of the obvious corporation must make money? That's kind of up to Nintendo here. Is 15 minutes enough time? I guess we'll see. The other thing was people were pointing out the live chat is disabled, and based on what we saw at the Treehouse, kind of connecting the dots there as Nintendo trying to avoid another debacle there. However, these live stream chats tend to be disabled up until the scheduled live stream starts, but I will say if it's disabled when the actual live stream is happening, might be a bit more of a point there to Nintendo realizing what happened with Treehouse and trying to avoid the situation, but I guess we'll see later on today when they do have this stream. Also, we do have Doom the Dark Ages out next month, and it looks awesome, and it looks like Microsoft is looking to celebrate that release with a couple of accessories, which you can see this posted up. This is over on Pure Xbox. We have a couple of controllers, Doom Xbox wireless controller, and then we also have a wrap. The wrap and the standard Xbox controller, limited edition Doom controller, are live now. We have the controller priced at $80, and then we have the wrap at $55. The accessory that's actually out here on April 25th is the Elite Series 2 controller. That'll be going for a price point of $200. I will say I do like the look of just like the limited edition, more standard controller they have here at $80. I think it looks awesome, like the green and then the splatter of red signifying like the blood on the controller. And they even changed out the A, B, X, and Y for just different symbols. That's really cool. The thing with these limited controllers, that one looks so awesome, I don't think I'd want to use it, so it'd be that sense of buy it and then put it up somewhere, and I definitely couldn't do that for an Elite controller for $200. I would actually have to use it then. The wrap's pretty cool too. I thought we'd see Microsoft do that more often, but they've kind of been a bit more reserved on those Xbox Series X wraps, and maybe just saving it for really, really big releases. Either way, these are all limited, so if you're a big Doom fan and wanted to get an accessory to celebrate the release, or maybe just a new controller in general, you're going to want to keep an eye out for these and maybe go on the website and start getting that pre-order set up, or that order set up for, of course, when Doom comes out next month. Oh, and with all the discussion around Oblivion Remaster that seems on track to not only get announced next week, but also just released, nice shadow drop there, big shadow drop technically, especially into Game Pass and everything. It'll be a lot of fun. But people have started asking about Fallout 3, which is another one that people have been asking if we could get some sort of refresh for that, whether a remake or remaster. And actually, Nate decided to chime in here, who, by the way, one of the first people I remember really talked about Oblivion Remaster, maybe just coming out even in April, which we can see this posted up. This is over on Twitter X, where someone asked about that, and Nate simply said, planned, but won't be for a while, which, again, kind of a shame. Look, you can play Fallout 3 on the Xbox Series X through backwards compatibility, and it's touched up nicely. Like, the frame rate's good, everything. But it's still an older title that you can really feel it from the Xbox 360 generation, and could definitely use some work. But for now, Oblivion obviously is the next one up, and then maybe they'll get to Fallout 3 Remastered here in a couple of years, potentially to close out the generation we're in now. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the Switch 2 and backwards compatibility with the current Switch, a library I'm sure that many people have built up physically and digitally, and it seems like for the most part, all of those games will be working day one. except for a few, and there are some exceptions here. And when it comes to the backwards compatibility, there have been some questions as to how Nintendo exactly has accomplished this. There is a very good video that MVG, Modern Vintage Gamer, put together that really goes over the fact that, yes, it's using emulation mixed with like hardware, and it's very complicated. I will say that, and it was kind of thought to be complicated going into it because it wasn't going to be easy to make the new Tegra work technically with the older X1 and everything just come together neatly at the end. But Nintendo, I would say, has done a fairly good job. So over on their website now, you can see, and I'll have this link down below in the sources if you haven't checked this out. They actually have like a chart here that shows, for the most part, like all the games just about work. Now, they're pointing out some that have issues during startup, and they have some that are just not compatible. Now, I will say some of the not compatible ones, for example, the Labo Toy-Con for the VR kit, which, I mean, yeah, so the VR kit, if you remember, was specific for the Switch with that screen. All right, so now you incorporate a much larger screen with the Switch 2, and it's just not going to fit. Like, that's the biggest thing, and the thing I really considered when it came to backwards compatibility were games that utilize either the Joy-Con controller specifically or the body of the Switch system itself, because when you have like for example, the OLED system, that has issues when it comes to just joy, or when it comes to the Labo stuff in general. So I assumed, yes, the Switch 2 will as well, but I don't necessarily know if a lot of people are losing sleep over the idea that, oh, Labo won't work with the Switch 2. Now, there are some games, for example, I noticed going down their list, which they have games with startup issues on Nintendo Switch 2, games that are playable but have some in-game compatibility issues, and then games with issues that are planned to be addressed. So a few of the games like Alan Wake Remaster, Alien Isolation, I noticed Mega Man Legacy Collection, Street Fighter 30th Anniversary, those are games where I'm like, okay, they probably want to get that all sorted out, and I will be curious when they do release this system, as people go back and test some of the games, maybe there are some bugs and issues that are found that weren't necessarily noted here by Nintendo, so I'm sure plenty will get out there and reported back to them, because that's really honestly the best testers are when they release it to millions of people in the public, and they can then get some feedback at that point. It is worth noting that the Joy-Con controllers, the Switch Pro controllers, all of that stuff technically work with the Switch 2, and so some games you will just need to have a Joy-Con on hand to make it work with the Switch 2. However, Nintendo is going back and already doing updates to certain games, at least letting people know what the deal is here with them. So for example, we can see this was published on their website, and this is Nintendo Switch games with issues that are planned to be addressed. Fortnite, which is a big one. I mean, it's massive live service game that draws a ton of people in, and it's a free-to-play title. So hey, look at it this way. If you get a Switch 2, you always know Fortnite will be there for you. But Epic Games is apparently making a Switch 2 version specifically. At least it's planned right now, and it would make sense to be able to take advantage of the newer hardware with the Switch 2, and of course, them using the latest Unreal Engine with Fortnite. It'll be a cool comparison, I guess, for the current Switch version versus the Switch 2, to see if Nvidia's claim of 10 times the performance will hold up, or the chip being 10 times more capable. The other one, and I know there's plenty of fitness boxing fans out there, they're planning to resolve that with an update. So I assume this PDF specifically will be updated, and we'll see this populated with more and more updates and things being resolved. So again, I'll have all this linked down below in the sources, so you keep an eye on this for yourself, and hopefully they're able to resolve most, if not all. It's gonna be tough to get all the issues, but most of the issues. However, it is nice to see that launching a vast majority, like 98% or something, are covered now. So the big Mario, Zelda, Pikmin games, all of that are all covered. Next up, let's talk about Sony raising prices once again, which we just talked about them raising prices of the hardware for the PlayStation 5 in different regions, which include like Australia. Now it looks like they're raising the PlayStation Plus subscription service for Canada, which we can actually see this posted up. I noticed this by Wario64 first, and they went ahead and listed all the different price points now, which we can see Essential is $110, is all in Canada again, Extra at $190, and then Premium at $225. Now, some were noting in the comments below that in the replies with the previous one. So for example, Essential was $95, now moving up to $15. Extra was $155, so then moving up $35. Then we have Premium at $190, moving up then $35. Now, according to Sony, with an email as they were just letting people know this is happening, they say this price adjustment will enable us to continue bringing high-quality games and benefits to your PlayStation Plus subscription service, and that's kind of it. That's the explanation. Now, of course, people going through exchange rates and just seeing how it exactly compares to US dollars, actually, after these price increases, about what we're kind of sitting at now. So some are looking at it saying, okay, they're just kind of bringing things in line with just falling and rising changes in currency and exchange rates. And I feel like I've heard the word inflation like a million times in the last few weeks now. But I guess here's just another example of that and just trying to even things out. I will say, Sony right now, they are scattershot around the US currently when it comes to price increases. I'm just sitting here waiting for the news to break that they are going to raise prices in the US, whether it's for hardware or for subscription service or games, because with how things are going right now when it comes to trade and tariffs, I mean, unless things get worked out specifically with China, because that's where a lot of PlayStation 5s are made, I have no idea how they do anything but that. Figure out other ways to extract more money from US customers to try to even out what are just ballooning tariffs and I'm sure very unexpected expenses from even a year ago now that they have to deal with around their consoles. But for now, it looks like in Canada, this starting in June, seems like you'll have to pay a bit more for that extra premium or essential. It was mentioned that if you re-up before that June date, I guess you'll stick with the current price point, but seems like a great way for Sony to get you to sign up again for another year, just kind of that FOMO to get out of the way of the $35 or so increase. Next up, let's talk about Phil Spencer, as he was talking with Variety around Switch 2 support and how Microsoft is viewing this new hybrid system and the new generation from Nintendo. We can see this posted up though. Again, this is on Variety, where they ask, Switch 2 is set to be released soon. As you've begun to branch out with games available on PlayStation and Nintendo consoles, do you have plans for specific projects on Switch 2? Says, so we've been supporting Switch 1. I want to support Switch 2. Nintendo has been a great partner. We think it is a unique way for us to reach players who aren't PC players, who aren't players on Xbox. It lets us continue to grow our community of people that care about the franchise that we have, and that's really important for us to make sure we continue to invest in our games. I'm really a big believer in what Nintendo means for this industry, and us continuing to support them and getting the support from them for our franchise, I think, is an important part of our future. Now, he was also asked, does Nintendo revealing its next-gen console make you antsy to announce what Xbox has coming in the next space? And he says, no, I think all of us in this industry should focus on our communities and the player base that we're building. I get inspired by what a lot of different creators do and other platform holders, but I believe in the plans that we have. Obviously, we're evolving what it means to be Xbox and meeting players in so many different places. There are 3 billion people who play video games on the planet, and I get up every morning and I think about how Xbox can be more relevant to the 3 billion people who play, and that's through making sure we're leading in how our games and our platform features can be available in as many places as possible, whether that's cloud, whether it's people playing on PC, whether it's people playing on console. So we're really driven by trying to grow our franchises and our platform to be an important part of gaming for as many of those 3 billion gamers as we can reach. So it seems like Phil Spencer has expanded his view to 3 million, because I do remember before he was talking about 2 million players, I thought. But either way, yeah, not shocking that Microsoft will be making a big push, specifically with Xbox, for the Switch 2 after what happened with the Switch 1 being a massive success for Nintendo with a huge install size. Now the Switch 2 shows up more capable and, I would assume, able to run more and more of Microsoft's games then. Yeah, they're going to be there immediately, I think. And yeah, we're probably going to see the Switch 2 logo quite a bit during this June showcase. Maybe even before that, actually, because what we've seen from Microsoft right now, they're just announcing and releasing games whenever they want. I mean, Oblivion's going to shadow drop next week. You feel like they could have saved that for June and been like, oh yeah, we'll just kind of throw this into the second half of the year. No, it's out next week, apparently. So sure, you could see them show up at any point in time, be like, oh, Indiana Jones, let's go into the Switch 2. You know, we'll let you guys know in a couple of weeks when it's out. Maybe Forza. I mean, who knows? Halo, that's a big one that keeps getting thrown around. Hey, Master Chief Collection might be parted out even. You might see like Halo 1 and 2 maybe make the move to Switch 2 right away. And honestly, that wouldn't shock me if they decided to announce that and then a couple weeks later, it's out. So while I think that June showcase will be a big moment for the Switch 2 logo just all over their event with different releases and mostly older titles from their catalog that they can move over. Obviously, Call of Duty, that's gonna be a big one with the Switch 2 logo. But I do feel like Microsoft is just ready to just announce stuff whenever they want. So that also kind of makes it sort of exciting, that unknown, that surprise factor. They can show up at any point in time and say, hey, here's some Switch 2 games that we have ready to roll, and they'll be out in a couple of weeks. But either way, Phil Spencer seems very excited for the Switch 2 and the future that Nintendo has there. But also on their side, I mean, they got a handheld coming up soon, not only with Asus, but also for their next generation device. I think they are going to have a console and a handheld, kind of similar to Sony. And there we go. We have just the handheld market seeing a bit of a resurgence, a revival, if you will. And to me, that's actually pretty exciting to see what kind of growth we can get out of these lower powered chips. And in our last bit of news, let's stick with Microsoft here for a moment with an update that they announced over on Xbox Wired. You could see this posted up. They have Xbox app on mobile, so you can buy games, join Game Pass, and redeem perks directly from the Xbox app, which, yeah, it's kind of funny that you couldn't technically buy stuff, I guess, through the app up until now. But the one that I noticed, I think this is kind of interesting, all right? Xbox consoles, stream your own game now on Xbox consoles. And you might go, okay, cool, I can stream it on the Xbox Series, so games that you already own, being able to stream it there, and that's fine, I guess. But Xbox One consoles also being included is interesting. I mean, I thought about them just, maybe they're leaving that all behind, and I guess looking at the Xbox One console, is it any less capable than your smart TV? No. I mean, you may have an Xbox One console that's just in a closet somewhere that you put away, like the VCR. Technically, here it is, being capable enough to stream one of your games, maybe in a spare bedroom or something. You throw it in there and kind of makes that VCR somewhat relevant here, and it being able to play games you own on the Xbox Series, kind of like a cloud-based Xbox Series system then. So that's cool. They also added some. That's the big thing here is, as we go along, they're going to keep adding some of these cloud-based owned games, all right? So while Game Pass titles are pretty much covered across the board with Game Pass Ultimate, be able to stream games you own is going to be hit or miss as they add them through this list. Still, though, kind of a cool thing when it comes to the Xbox One system itself, at least be able to play Xbox Series games just through the cloud. At least it makes the VCR not completely worthless at this point overall. And before we go to the comments of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, are you planning to pick up the Switch 2 Pro controller? 43% say yes, 57% say no. I'll be picking it up day one. I'm just curious about the build quality for it. The fact they added those macro buttons in the back is it's interesting, but the issue is, once again, developers, publishers won't know that it's there by default because not everyone's going to pick up a Pro controller. And I know it would have been maybe kind of strange for them to get back buttons on the Joy-Con controllers, but that would have been cool if they figured out something there so that we'd have a system that by default out of the box had those back buttons, and developers can maybe do some interesting things with that. But still, I like the idea of having them there, maybe to just to be able to assign different buttons to that. Like with, I'm playing Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition still on and off, and maybe just scrolling through your arts that way would be kind of cool. Just throw it on the two macro buttons and technically still jump around pretty easily. I think it'd be cool to just have it for certain titles, and I'm just interested to see how much different it really is from the Pro controller we have now, because I mean, it looks different, but it doesn't look like massively different. So I'm thinking maybe when it comes to the build quality side, it will be a slight step up at least. And we'll finish up with the comments of the day. We'll start with actually the member comment we can see. And this is from Pickle Rick, who says, I don't understand all the uproar over getting exactly what everyone wanted. Like if they pulled a Wii U situation, everyone would absolutely lose their mind because they didn't do what they did here, make it make sense. So I think no matter what, because Nintendo right now is casting a very wide net coming off of a generation of more than 150 million systems selling, and they've shown statistics that there's like 120 million some odd people signing in every month who are actually playing these games on their Switch. You're just gonna have a lot of people back and forth. Some like it, some don't. You just can't please everyone. And the more people you have, in this case, keeping an eye on your platform, honestly, the more people you have a chance to disappoint. So I think this is the right move, this iterative move, obviously, because we never got the Switch Pro, and I think it would be really frustrating if we completely moved on from this hybrid setup and they did something wacky and out of left field and never gave us that more powerful Switch that has backwards compatibility to play some of these older or current titles at like stable resolution, 30 FPS. I know we're asking for a lot here, but honestly, We need that patch for Game Freak with some of these Pokemon games, and that patch is the Switch 2. And then we'll go over to the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Terran Time, who says, Claire Obscure, and I get to play Oblivion for the first time. This is gonna be a fun end of the month. Wow, yeah, I somewhat envy people who have never played Oblivion before, because while I look back at it with like nostalgia goggles, I'm sure, it's still a really cool game, and it getting this remake, or they call it a remaster, but some of those images that are out there, it looks like a remake, especially in Unreal Engine, apparently. Either way, it was such an interesting point in time there at the I mean, like, it was 5 months into the Xbox 360's life, and it was just such a wondrous time with this new generation starting up from Microsoft, who had the spotlight. Nintendo and Sony were still technically on the GameCube and the PS2. Here's this beast of a console with the Xbox 360 and Oblivion. And I'm gonna tell you now, that moment when you walk out of like the sewers or the dungeon or whatever, and you go into the overworld and you just see it for the first time, absolutely mind-blowing stuff. So I don't know if they'll be able to recreate that again with this remake, because it's been done many times over now, but it was a really, really awesome time in gaming, I'll say that. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you wanted to hear about how the Switch 2 seems to be more powerful than we were originally expecting, I'll leave that right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.